Здоровенькие ребята, вы на канале Фордмак и 2 часа Соника, который потерял свой рассудок, а именно Арчи Соник, что потерял свой рассудок. Ну, после предыдущей истории, в которой вроде бы были действительно интересные повороты, так и очень, сука, сомнительные решения, которые превратили Соника хер пойми во что. Если что-то вообще терял понимание того, что там, во-первых, происходит, а во-вторых, что это вообще Соник. Но давайте уж посмотрим, как же дальше справляются Арчи. Ну что же, поехали.
Это сиквел,
As an
конкретно к тому видосу, который...
Да, это сиквел.
The Archie Sonic comics have had it pretty easy. At its own discretion, it could be whimsical and silly or deathly serious. It could pull from or expand on any game character it liked with seemingly little oversight.
And выглядит, господи, находят такие наказы в халатах.
Да просто культы ехидные.
Anytime a new Sonic game came out, well, just toss it into a one-shot special so we can keep the main comic moving. They could basically do anything, with the comic's radical recontextualization of Dr. Eggman being the clearest example. The world of Mobius was truly their own. And I kinda dig it now. In fact, when Eggman came back, that's when the comic finally started to get its act together, and I had to know what new and crazy adventures our heroes would get up to. So, without further ado, let's juice and what the... Is that thunder? Rain and lightning? Oh. Oh no. No, not now. No.
Эпоха адвенчеров.
Да, мы остановились как раз таки на этом, на самом важном моменте для Соника.
В важном моменте для сумочки, да.
Что? Ну, может быть.
When Sonic Team made the big boy leap into the third dimension with Sonic Adventure, the Archie Sonic comics' ability to practically ignore the games seemed to change, at least in part. With a more involved narrative, the Archie Sonic writers were tasked with directly adapting a game story that had to go far beyond a single issue to tell its tale. Actually, it needed 7 issues to be precise.
Оу. Миленько. Хоть и да, конечно, арт порой очень варьируется.
And frankly, it came at a completely inopportune time in the comics' own narrative.
Что с глазами? Что это такое?
Да, это в стиле Соника, я не понимаю, правда, почему он выглядит настолько... Понимаете, они вроде пытались какую-то японскую чебишность, но это больше похоже, как будто у Соника рта нету. Да жутко.
I mean, Uncle Chuck has been captured, there's these mysterious spacecrafts headed towards the planet, but you know what? It's hard to blame either Sega or Archie in this case, so I won't get my Sonic jammies in a twist about it. After all, this Sonic adventure is a big deal, so it makes sense that both parties would obviously pull out all the stops to ensure it can be as polished as possible. Right? Well, there's a problem here. Sega is... well, they're Sega, which means that this was done in the most inconvenient way possible for the comics staff, because Sonic Adventure released in English on September 9th, 1999. Meanwhile, the first issue of the Sonic Adventure tie-in comic released in November 1999. At first, that might not sound like a problem, though. I mean, didn't that give them a couple months to get scripts ready? Well, no, it didn't, since these scripts are frequently written many months in advance.
Oh.
So if these adventure tie-in issues were written ahead of time, then that means that the writers probably didn't have an English copy of the game to work with. So surely Sega gave them a detailed rundown of the story, right?
Sega never gave us anything to work with. Anything I got from the games, I had to dig up myself. Like Sonic Adventure, the adaptation. Patrick Speziante, the cover artist, he managed to get hold of a copy of the game from Japan. It was all in Japanese. So he...
Ну, понятно, как говорится, как Sega относится ко всему этому. Не то, чтобы создать такой, файл-док, такой документик удобный, нет. Сами, блядь, разбирайтесь. Охуенное отношение, блядь, к своим авторам.
He played the game just to give us a raw idea of the plot. That's all we had to work with. I don't know how well I did, but I did the best I could.
Yeah, that's right. The comics staff just had to figure out how to adapt the game with Spaz's personal Japanese copy as their main reference. Heck, the comic itself tells you this. There's a whole page by the editor going over the trials and tribulations of adapting Adventure, and honestly, it reads like a cry for help. These poor people. Honestly, what did Sega expect? Were they supposed to get the plot by going off the commercials or something? Through osmosis, consult the ancient walkers for guidance? This probably explains a bunch of these moments where the lettering is suddenly different. These were likely last-minute changes, done in an attempt to make things fall more in line with the game's dialogue. And even without Sega leaving them hanging out to dry, this adaptation already would have presented a huge challenge. Because as should probably be clear by now, the world of Archie Sonic is not the world...
Да, мешать, как говорится, это главная проблема, из-за которой я все еще никак не прикасаюсь к Арчи. Насколько, сука, все намешано, когда берется оригинальный сюжет игры, и он мешается с Арчи, у которой уже своя, как говорится, фабула, своя атмосфера, и все это получается шатко-валко порой.
World of the games at all. And we've got all these other original characters to deal with.
Господи, блядь. Тейлз как будто сейчас сдохнет.
Отвратная какая-то.
Что?
Какая-то отвратная, я не могу понять, что это не так.
Я скажу так. Меня очень смущают лица. Ты понимаешь? У меня такое чувство, будто они все сейчас сдохнут. У них лица какие-то полные, блядь, отчаяния и прям... Я не знаю, как бы сказать... Вот есть люди нормальные, люди, вон там парень на фоне прикольно выглядит, но вот животные почему-то выглядят так, что я не могу понять их эмоций, вот эти блики ненужные. Вот реально, у Салли и у Банни глаза такие, как будто они сейчас просто расплачутся. А Тейлз, как будто он сейчас, блядь, будет делать ахигау для OnlyFans. Соник вообще сломался, нахуй, несите нового.
So how on earth, excuse me, how in Mobius, were the creators supposed to connect the two? Well, to their credit, they actually did a pretty darn good job. See, the overarching narrative remains the same as the game, with Eggman releasing Chaos, the god of destruction.
У Eggmana тоже проблем со внешностью хватает, ради справедливости.
Да нет, в принципе, он выглядит относительно, блядь, ну как-то тот момент выглядел. Нормально.
On Station Square. Now it's up to Sonic and his friends to not only stop the Doctor's new pawn, but maybe even save it from its centuries of pain and sorrow, preferably through kicking its butt. Thanks to some awesome art by Stephen Butler, there's this extra spectacle added to so many of these iconic moments, especially the fight
здесь еще нормально выглядит, честно.
Да, здесь жить можно.
With perfect chaos. If nothing else, I can at least recommend skimming this arc for that alone. As far as the original material goes, I gotta say that I really appreciate how a lot of it...
Это что за складка такая вот?
В смысле?
Ну вот это, да. Это что такое за треугольник смерти?
А, ну типа они пытались изобразить типа округлые живота. Но выглядит странно. Все-таки как-то логичнее, если бы она просто внизу была бы.
Это знаешь, как вот в 0.6 у него тоже как-то странно там все работает.
Is handled here. For example, the introduction of Station Square, or the hidden city of ancients. Here, Station Square is actually a secret underground civilization complete with an artificial sky and weather system. Just as...
Понятно. Выдумываем ебучий летающий велосипед. Это все легче можно было объяснить.
Well, the people living here go by humans rather than overlanders. Where Robotnik was always clearly a human of sorts in the games, I'm sure it was still rather surprising for some kids back in the day to see Sonic interacting with more realistic-looking people. So it's cool to see that reflected in the comic, with Sonic and his friends being a spectacle to the people of Station Square, which they...
Глаза у Тейлза выглядят так, как будто это какая-то странная пародия на Ютубе.
Опять же, ой, я не понимаю, правда, чего попытались некоторые авторы добиться.
Leads to some fun antics and the start of a new partnership with the Kingdom of Acorn. Sometimes messy execution aside, it's pretty admirable how the comic consistently refuses to simply throw in new concepts from the games without finding some in-universe justification for their existence. As for other neat stuff, well, where in the original game you had to fight Chaos 4 3 separate times with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles individually, the comic has them fight the monster all at once. That was
довольно логичное решение, лишь бы это все не проворачивать несколько раз.
Kind of the narrative context of the game anyway, so the comic gets to lean into that through this cool team-up attack. Definitely an improvement there, and we even get to see a comic original form of Chaos, which is a great and very natural way to build upon the game. Speaking of the beast itself, in this continuity, it's from this dark Chaos Emerald looking thing rather than...
О боже, блядь, серьезно. Еще и новый изумруд.
...than the Master Emerald. Which is just because in the comics, the Master Emerald was created under different circumstances, but that's a tale for another time. However, without a doubt, the coolest example of the comic going above and beyond the game it's adapting is its use of the hidden metal Sonic located in Eggman's base.
Точно, у него же там это, если хорошенько порыться, пока мы находимся на Керриере, можно найти этого красавца.
In Adventure 1. This random background element that was a source of so much fan speculation was repurposed in a later issue as a final gambit against Station Square by Eggman.
Только зачем-то ему добавили, блядь, рот? Нахуя?
during the Freedom Fighters going away party. It gets goofy one-liners and puts up a wacky and fun fight against Sonic, eventually
Хаста ла виста биста. Господи боже.
Мисто.
being reprogrammed by Nate Morgan to protect Station Square from any future attacks by the Doctor. A pretty darn
Пародия на Бакстера Стокмана.
Да, он
такой
смешно выглядит.
смешной персонаж, он вообще как будто не из вселенной Соника.
Ну я просто Бакстер Стокман пришел.
deep cut, and a really cool way to show the fans of the game that they care, or at the very least that they were as fascinated by the sick design as many fans were. On the character side of things, we have Big. Everyone's
Ну просто Биг чилит. С лягушечкой.
favorite guy. He's still looking for Froggy after he's captured by Gamma. However, something's different. While Big still comes across as a fairly dopey dude, he has something dwelling inside him. A hunger. A rage.
Чё?
No one takes my buddy if they know what's good for them. Since that bucket of bolts probably doesn't know any better, I guess I'll have to go show him what's what.
Это реально странно, как будто, блядь, какая-то сущность просыпается, блядь.
В виде гномика.
Да нет, здесь не в виде гномика, здесь в виде кое-кого другого. В виде деда в виде деда серьезного Сэма. Просто прикол в том, что как бы Бига озвучивает актер, который озвучивает Дюка Нюкема.
О, господи.
It's time to kick some butts and chew gum.
Yeah, Big, you tell him! It helps that this adaptation has other moments like this too, where characters just go buck wild and say some weird things. If it's a matter of my dead carcass or yours, here's a clue. It ain't me that's going down. Yeah, you tell him about carcasses, Sonic. Another positive is that we generally hold off from having too much in-your-face narration, and yeah, this is just a fine enough, fun little adaptation. That means it can sometimes get bland or feel like it's going through the motions, but considering the condition in which it was made,
Не, ну как бы хорошо
Хоть
выглядит.
кто-то здесь хорошо.
Здесь видно, что здесь авторы очень часто менялись, из-за чего реально такой... То выглядит все относительно более по-японски, там вот были случаи, вот с тем же вот Metal Соником, то здесь все такое более, блять, какое-то приглаженное, причем с очень большими глазами.
I respect what the creators managed to do here. And hey, at least it goes out with a bang, as we get to my favorite part of this adaptation, the battle with perfect chaos. In the game, I always found it slightly disappointing that despite having each of these individual narratives, everyone other
Ну, это да, когда мы вместе с тобой проходили, это был пиздец.
than Sonic winds up standing on the sidelines cheering, instead of playing a more active part in defeating the final boss. The comic doesn't entirely fix this, most of the characters still don't have that much to do, even if I like how the Freedom Fighters are saving
Показали.
Ну да. А, блин.
entirely fix this, most of the characters still don't have that much to do, even if I like how the Freedom Fighters are
Как же персонажи типа Салли, Антуана, Бани, как же они тут... Ну,
Но они
вообще
правда не
даже, ну,
сочетаются. Вот это главная проблема. У нас есть стиль адвенчера, есть вот это.
Как будто вот сделали какой-то кроссовер странный, непонятный.
Хуй его знает.
are saving civilians during Perfect Chaos's initial attack. Well, most of them. Wump. Instead, we have two heroes to save the day. Sonic, of course, and best of all, my main man, Knuckles the Echidna. Here, Super Sonic is having a tough time keeping Perfect Chaos still long enough to deliver the final blow, and so a plan is put in place. Sonic needs to lead the beast to a power plant where he'll use the electricity to...
Здесь Салли нарисовано. Ее как будто растянули. Я не понимаю, художники там под чем-то были.
Ну, решили, походу,
Художники
рисовать
были под изумрудами
такого
были.
фурийного человека.
Ну это жутко выглядит. Это реально были как какой-то фурий костюм.
Я не знаю, чего они пытались добиваться, вот честно.
stun it. However, the generator is disconnected with an important piece submerged underwater. Time is ticking and it seems like we aren't gonna make it. But then Knuckles arrives and puts it perfectly. Who else is gonna do it? There's nobody but me. It's really good and a wonderful reminder that no matter how strong our true blue hero becomes, you can never count out Rad Red. In the end, the day is saved and our two heroes part ways with a smile. Man, it feels nice seeing how far these two have come from hot-headed rivals to just good buddies. I've really missed their dynamic. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, yeah, we haven't seen much of these two together in a long time. Used to be you couldn't go 10 issues without a Knuckles crossover event or some B stories focused on him scattered throughout. I guess all that really has just gone to his miniseries, huh? And it kind of makes me wonder, hey, what
Иронично.
Угу.
has Knuckles been up to?
Как раз таки, что у нас там скоро?
Говносериал. Ладно, не говносериал, но...
Просто хреновенький пока на первый вид сериал.
Don't say anything too crazy. However, while there are additions like this, some things have been removed. For example, Tails' story of self-affirmation is cut entirely. Gamma vanishes after his battle with Sonic on the egg carrier, and Amy isn't even able to get her story off the ground before being kidnapped by Zero. They even cut her speech with Gamma. Considering Gamma was easily my favorite part of Adventure's story, I guess I can understand someone being upset about that. But it was pretty tangential to the main plot, so I can see why it would have been cut for time. Never mind the fact that the writers didn't have a script to work with, so yeah, who even knows how much they understood Gamma's stuff. Meanwhile, Tails' story is one of those things I think the comic benefits from handling in its own way, considering that Tails and Sonic have all this added comic-only context to their relationship. So I'd honestly rather have the comic develop that on its own terms. But then there's Amy. You may have noticed that she now has her adventure design and therefore looks much older than her little Rosie the Rascal appearance.
Ну да, что-то тут как-то...
Скачок очень сильный.
А что это вообще? Как будто, знаешь, это выглядит как с какой-то упаковки японских конфет.
Ну, а почему нет? Покупайте самые лучшие, самые вкусные такаяки.
Прелесть.
With Sonic's redesign, they very easily could have gotten away with just changing how he looks without all the previously mentioned convoluted nonsense. I mean, they did just that with Tails and Knuckles. However, Amy's change isn't quite as simple. To me, she looks decidedly older and more mature in Adventure, and that makes this harder to work around. And this is where some strange stuff starts to slip into the mix. See, in the issues leading up to Adventure, Sally's mother Alicia is in a frightening state. She's within a cryotube, and if it turns off, she will die. Considering that there's only enough power left to keep it running for a single week, things aren't looking so hot for our favorite Acorn mommy. Of course, King Max is upset about this, and so is Prince Elias, when he overhears his dad and Dr. Quack talking about her condition. However, Elias is able to come up with a plan. Back in the World Adventure arc, they collected a super
Ох, блядь, серьезно. Ладно, это даже било.
powerful ring of Acorn that can apparently grant wishes to someone pure of heart, meaning that Elias will be able to save his mother. So he rushes toward the ring, his only hope, and his mother's salvation, only to find that it's already been used by Amy
Чё?
Rose. So what did Amy need it for exactly? Well, after being told by the freedom fighters that she was too young to go on missions, she found the ring and used it to get older.
Это самая тупая хуйня, которую я только мог слышать. Это настолько тупо, что даже не смешно. Это, блядь, за пределами понимания и здравого смысла. Мы серьезно взяли и потратили мощный, блядь, МакГаффин, мощнейший артефакт на то, чтобы она стала просто, блядь, повзрослее.
Легально.
Охуенно, блядь. Блядь, это я не знаю, нахуй. Это все равно, что, блядь, вот Соник также, блядь, в условных Secret Rings, вместо того, чтобы пожелать, чтобы этот ебучий главный злодей Джин там испарился и все стало хорошо, он пожелал бы, а можно мне просто чередок, блядь. Мир в итоге горит, а он сидит чередок сюда жрать, пока сам не сдохнет.
Yep. This is the way the writers get Amy into her adventure design. Do we acknowledge that she took this ring from someone who's gonna probably die without it? Not really, beyond a single panel of Elias looking pretty darn upset. How about the fact that Amy is still mentally a child? Yeah, Nate Morgan and Sonic are the only ones who really bring that up, and it doesn't lead anywhere. It just happened because the writers needed to find some way to get Amy to look like she was older, so I guess they came up with... Yeah. To me, this is pretty clearly the comic getting pushed into a corner and rushed to come up with a solution. The type of thing that happens when you don't give your writer a script for the game they're supposed to adapt, when they're attempting to piece all this crap together at the last minute. So am I annoyed with the
Это пиздец.
writers for this? No. And as far as the insane implications, well, Amy was hardly even on screen at this point, let alone a character. She's just a little kid and didn't really seem to know better either, so I'm more than willing to just chuck this under more Archie absurdity. After all, to quote Sonic Adventure, it doesn't matter. Even if this is a bit stranger than usual, even for this comic. And that's the thing, though. This isn't some isolated incident, some little thing that just happens. This is the sign of things to come. A sign that things are about to get a whole lot stranger. Hello, class, and welcome to the first lecture of Mobius 101, where we'll be going through the Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comic in all its glorious depth and beauty. I hope you're all as revved up and ready to go as I am, and worry not, we'll be diving knee-deep into the hog soon enough. But first, what better place is there to start than with some fun facts? First off, I want you to take a look at this. The image on the left is from SatAM, while on the right we have Archie. But Sally, she looks different. On the right, she's more pink. Meanwhile, Rotor is named Boomer. And you might look at this and go, am I going nuts? Well, no, you've actually never been more sane. See, here is Pink Sally in SatAM on the left, but this is from the pilot episode. After that design.
Ну, кстати, по-моему, с таким же дизайном она появлялась в каком-то рождественском спешле. Господи, там же рождественский спешл еще был у этого сраного Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Там такая залупища, если честно, запутанная во всем этом. Боже.
Changes were made. Meanwhile, Rotor was originally named Boomer in the design documents, and bonus fact, Antoine's last name in the script was Ducoulette before it was changed to something worse. Archie knew what to do though, and they kept the better name, staying truer to the source than the source itself. Similarly, we see the use of gray swap bots in the pilot, which Archie carried forward. Along with them, badniks. Yeah, you know, from the game. They were removed after the pilot, we can see it here, but Archie, it keeps them in. And thank the walkers for that, kids. Of course, though, we all know that SatAM was eventually canceled, and just a few months before the cancellation, well, Archie was seemingly forced to update the designs to be more in line with the show's final designs, and yeah, just look at it, Sally with her jacket, more clothing. Upsetting, I know, but don't worry, we can keep having fun. Ignore that sign, obviously. Not really, it's actually testable material. See, many kids think this is from Archie, but it's not. It's from Sonic's Shoes Blues, one of my favorite bedtime stories. Just
Сказка про Соника. Это столько мило, что пиздец.
Just soak that in. Anyway, next fact. Some of you might recognize this dapper man on the right, Nate Morgan. Well, originally he was a character made for SatAM. Fortunately, Archie ended up using him and even updated his design to be better. Speaking of things that were lost and made better, this story, everything old is new again. This was originally scrapped, but in Sonic Archives 5, it came to us. Look at it. The Universe Salamander is back. Rotor is packing new and improved heat. And you know what, kids? I think I might be too. Wow! It's so fun. And I can't help but wish it could always be like this.
Я уже не знаю, честно, это настолько абсурдно, что тут даже не пошутить ничего, это пиздец какой-то.
But it can't. Things change. Alright? Change is inevitable. And as Nicole is sure to tell us, things are about to get more complex. And honestly, I don't know if I'll be able to keep you kids all safe. Back in the day, the Archie Sonic comics began as a comedy. A gag story driven by one-off conflicts and silly shenanigans. But we've moved pretty far from those days, haven't we? Things have been a whole lot more plot-driven, for better or worse, with a lot of serious stuff happening. However, with the return of Robotnik came the resetting of the status quo, of the battle between the heroes and their villain. But it isn't only the plot that's reset. In some ways, the tone has returned to the olden days as well. Because the comedy is back. Silly wordplay, Sonic's snappy personality, and various goofy conflicts that become greater than the sum of their parts to the...
Господи.
Да, мину выебала. Она похожа на какой-то скетчик, блядь, для газеты японской дешевой.
Ну, типа...
А Бани...
Она задняя... Что это за...
Походу, американцы решили пуститься в аниме, либо позвали так себе японского художника. Суки.
The sheer variety of it all are once again the focus. And I found myself having far more fun with the comic than I expected. For example, you've got Sonic punishing this genie guy for stealing his speed by tossing him into a lake and trapping him for all of eternity. You've got Eggman putting his consciousness into this ridiculous-looking robot, talking about how he should have baked a cake or something, and swatting at Sonic with his stupid arm only for this to happen.
Stop! My arm is killing me!
Well, your face is killing me, but you don't see me complaining. Now say, ah! Hasta la vista, mister. And speaking of
Какая кринжатина.
Ну тогда
The
это
doc-
было свежо.
Не особо уже, блядь, достаточно прошло времени с того, что это уже закринжевалось.
here, we actually get a story about the old Robotnik coming back to life and then crashing at Sonic's place for an entire week.
О, они... Вот так вот чем вдохновлялся тот эпизод Sonic Boom.
Походу, но как же здесь странно выглядит этот старый работник. Честно, он выглядит как какой-то дядюшка, который, блядь, решил сделать хуёвый косплей на Хэллоуин. То есть он здесь не тот самый стрёмный, а он вот издалека, он реально похож на какого-то такого лысого дядьку, который решил сделать косплей стрёмный.
That's right, the man who tormented and tortured Sonic and Co. for years is now an obnoxious roommate. Eventually, Robotnik wants to go and meet Eggman, talking about how he must face himself and how he wants to work with our heroes going forward. What do they think? Whatever. Go fish. As it turns out, this was all a plot by the two doctors to capture the freedom fighters. But they also knew this was coming and simply used it as an excuse to destroy the machine that brought Robotnik back in the
Что с
first
Баней? У
place.
нее прическа такая, как будто она только что проснулась.
Я не знаю, вот мне реально тяжело из-за того, что тут все так меняется, блядь. Я понимаю, разные стили, разные авторы, но как можно так, блядь, обращаться с, как говорится, произведением, что так все меняется, блядь, буквально через каждые фреймы.
But okay, now we have two Robotniks to deal with, right? Wrong, because the freedom fighters also knew that Robotnik's new body was unstable and just didn't tell them because they were waiting for him to eventually die. Oops. And we never see him again.
Fear
Блядь.
the worst. It's up to you to find her and complete the mission. Stop, Robotnik!
Опять? Вот что это? Что это за Генри Стикман? Пиздец. Я не могу, мне плохо.
Я
уже
понимаю,
устала
это ужасно.
ругаться.
Не, ну Соник здесь отвратительный просто, блядь. Я знаю, ребят, что надо... Вы пишите в комментариях, что
Что мы
угодно, что типа...
заебали уже, наверное,
Что
жаловаться.
заебали, что типа мы ноем, но это невозможно, блядь. Здесь настолько отвратительно, блядь, это выглядит, господи. Он как будто, блядь, умирает от анорексии, он как будто, блядь, не жрал вообще уже целый месяц.
Why didn't you call us in the
Ну ладно, год, да.
first place?
Oh, please forgive me! What was I thinking? I should have known better.
Dude, chill.
Let's see if this sort of acorns could actually restore Mobian free will. Ah, useless! It's useless! My precious combat's incinerated in vain! I'll make Sonic pay for this by striking down his beloved uncle. Bah! It's ungratifying if he isn't here to see me do it. I'm bored. These drop-top limo drives always get me in an assassination frame of mind.
Wait, was that a joke about JFK? Yeah, that's right.
Кстати, по факту. Кабриолет, потом дошути, пиздец.
Hey, this isn't the same tone as the gag era. There, the comedy was a lot more lighthearted, leaned towards slapstick and punny jokes. Even Robotnik was relatively tame. Now things are different. Our new, crueler version of Eggman has seemingly infected the rest of the comic with his morbid sense of humor. Some of this is relatively benign, like wordplay based on swearing, but other times characters are treated with such inane cruelty that the cruelty itself becomes a sort of twisted joke. And some story endings are so contrary to typical hopeful themes that I couldn't help but burst out laughing. While some of this seems intentionally funny, there were other times where I wasn't certain. And really,
Анимация, я помнишь, что анимация Sonic Шорза?
Да, помню.
Вот я сейчас вспомнила.
Тот самый танец.
this almost feels like a dark comedy. This shift can be felt all over this section, but let's start from the beginning with the era's first two-parter, Heart of the Hedgehog, a story where Metal Sonic returns to defeat Sonic. He kidnaps Tails, places him in a volcano, and challenges Sonic to get to him before it erupts and kills his best buddy. Metal Sonic has some banger lines like, "Have a good trip, Sonic! Don't forget to die!"
Я не могу смотреть на Metal Sonic, который отмачивает такую хуйню. Это вообще не вяжется.
Grow up, Tails. It's a cruel world. I'm listening to your moans of pain and thoroughly enjoying them. However, this story actually uses Sonic and Tails quite effectively, with a structure that complements this conflict. See, we begin with Tails feeling inadequate because he can't keep up with Sonic. Sonic, being the swell
Пиздец, конечно, его подожгло здесь, но что поделать. Вулкан.
fellow he is, encourages Tails, telling him that
По-моему,
this
это
is all
просто
part
рисовка
of training.
такая.
Что?
По-моему, это просто такая рисовка.
Разве?
Да. Он так везде выглядит.
Пиздец.
He needs to learn, and that's okay. So we're getting a little likable snapshot of their relationship. But this also serves to build up Tails' success later in the issue. After all, Metal Sonic beats Sonic, and all that Sonic can do is try to talk him out of killing Tails. He tells him that all the power in the world doesn't mean anything if he's closed off from his feelings, from friends and the joy of being alive. Unfortunately, this doesn't convince Metal Sonic. As such, all Sonic can do is tell Tails to run
Все равно, как же странно здесь Тейлз выглядит с такой вот шорсткой.
away, but Tails refuses. Even if it means dying, he'll stay with Sonic. Suddenly, this act of hopeless self-sacrifice, of friendship, convinces Metal Sonic that his organic counterpart was right. This way, Tails has succeeded where Sonic couldn't, has put his words into action, and his arc in the story is realized. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, but why do you think this is a dark comedy? This doesn't sound that funny. Well, there are a couple things that get me giggling here. First,
Я не могу... Как же... Вот что, ну... Metal Sonic с артом выглядит просто паршиво.
the art is incredibly silly. I mean, just look at Tails. Look at him. He's not doing good. Then you've got Sonic talking about the possibility of metal having some robotic soul and it should mean something to me. But look at his face. There's this constant clash between the serious
Честно, похоже на вот те самые смешные картинки, где у Соника еще такое ебало.
nature of the story and the art depicting it. And honestly, I love it. It takes what could have been a fairly okay if rushed tale and turns it into this strange, tragic comedy. And that tragic element is the other side of this comedic coin, because Metal Sonic doesn't just kind of become a better person or start reconsidering things. No, at the flip of a switch, in one panel, my man is willing to die for them. And the way Metal Sonic goes out too, where as he's melting away, he tells Sonic and Tails to not worry about leaving him to die because after all, he's just a robot, a powerful, unfeeling robot. Wow, it's so violently tragic out of nowhere. But this story has nothing on
Опять этот Monkey Khan, господи.
against the haunted past. Here we explore Monkey Khan's, you guessed it, haunted past. Immediately, it's clear that Monkey Khan doesn't quite fit in with his village. The rest of them are pacifists, but he likes to fight, and he's good at it too. However, his father gives him some sage advice.
There's no conflict that cannot be resolved through communication and reason.
Wow, wise words from a wise man. Except that right after he utters
Да,
those
только он не мужчина, он не человек, он обезьяна. Мать. Хотя ладно, здесь еще работник смотрится неплохо.
words, Robotnik swoops in, kidnaps everyone, experiments on them, and kills each and every one other than Monkey Khan, who he, as we know, mutilated and tortured to transform into a cyborg. Folks, I was in disbelief. Just, wow. It seems that the village's ideas were too weak. They were wrong. Not all conflicts can be solved through communication and reason, I guess. Sometimes you should fight, and sometimes even that isn't enough. As at the end of the story, it's revealed that Eggman has roboticized another helpless village, leaving Monkey Khan the sole survivor of another ghost town. Wow. Monkey Khan's life feels like one big, tragic joke. And this poor guy is the punchline.
Жесть. Честно, выглядит реально жутко.
The unexpected message, the suddenness of their deaths, the art, all of it comes together to create a story that makes me laugh at it even if I feel like I shouldn't. But you know what? There might be an even better one. Crouching Hedgehog, Hidden Dragon. This time, Sonic is tasked with defeating the dragon named Zan, who has been terrorizing Station Square. Working together
Ну понятно. Такие вот безумные коллабы до времен Геншина. Но если честно, это так странно. Соник против ебучего китайского дракона.
with the army, Sonic hunts down the dragon and learns that it's Dulcie's boyfriend. Yeah, that's right, Dulcie's back. One of the protagonists of Endgame. Wow, how are we gonna treat the return of this character? Well, Dulcie has been abused by her boyfriend. Yeah,
Парень.
Sonic comic is tackling this. Dulcie even has a moment where she talks about her complicated relationship with Zan to her friends. Zan loves me. Then why does he hit you?
In your face, dragon breath!
It's my fault. Don't go there, gal. You know you're beautiful, don't you? You can't stay with Zan.
Did you set the explosives? You bet, Haunch! Boom!
Why am I laughing at this? Well, first off, this is the Sonic comic.
И опять вот, как же некоторые художники ему глаза, блядь, рисуют. Боже, вот эти огромные прям супер выпученные глаза и маленький такой ротик.
Even though I'm not the sort of guy who thinks anything is inherently
Я знаю, что я очень часто, что в прошлом видосе, что здесь придираюсь к карту, но порой это прям заходит слишком, сука, далеко.
off limits for the story, this is truly bizarre. Like the whole time I'm reading it, I'm looking at the art and the characters and going, how did we get here? How did this get through production? And
Тоже, блин, странно. Честно, я бы никогда не подумал историю о том, где Соник помогает чертовым драконам, как и друзья Соника, помогает им, точнее, дракону разобраться в абьюзивных отношениях. И этом пизде вот этого самого дракона. Ну, конечно, не Дауси, а вот этого Зана, господи, блядь, я бы никогда так не подумал, что у нас тут комикс про Соника, что пытается, ну, и друзей Соника, что пытается разобраться в абьюзивных отношениях.
and happen. Honestly, it would be a lot easier to take seriously if the comic committed to it a bit more. Instead, this instance of abuse is simply treated like a little spice that's thrown on top of this otherwise simple, silly story as we follow Sonic's goofy antics, reminding us that this comic is both a silly action romp and that we're fighting a dumb red dragon who's helping us explore abuse. Actually, you know what? I don't know what Sonic's deal is in this issue, but he is hilarious. The moment Sonic sees that he'll be working with this group of soldiers he beat up a few issues back, he just starts laughing right in their faces, only for Sally to cover for him by saying that it's custom to laugh at one's allies in their culture. My dude is sitting in the copter asking if anyone likes action movies. He starts singing on their way to execute Zan. What is going on? He doesn't give a crap. It really captures a feeling you don't see often in fiction. You know, when you go to a friend's house and they're in a real weird mood for some reason, maybe even arguing with their parents a bit, and it gets awkward because they aren't normally like this. Yeah, remember that? Maybe that's just me. Anyway, what the heck was I talking about?
И что, блядь, с лицом Тейлза? Он медленно, походу, Микки Мауса, блядь, превращается.
Oh yeah, at the end of the story, we catch up with what happened to the fire-breathing beast as the freedom fighters stand over Zan's grave, silhouetted by the night sky. And we end on the line, guess it all worked out in the end. Okay, sure, but hear me out. Did it really? Keep in mind that though Zan was a filthy abuser, we also learn in this issue that Station Square was just kind of destroying his home for military tests because they could, I guess. And now they'll be able to use all this land to continue testing weapons with no one to stand in their way. Who knows how many innocent creatures will fall in their wake? Is Sonic okay with this? Who knows, man? Oh, and by the way, Dulcie's gone now. She won't return for actual years of real-world publishing time, and even when she does, we don't
то есть это пока что последний выпуск с ее участием.
follow up on her feelings or this story. In fact, there, we get a joke about her abuse, so what am I supposed to take from this? That's also actually the last time we see her in the rest of the comic. This is her send-off? What is happening? But then I remember.
О, блядь.
I don't know. I don't care. It's funny and it doesn't matter. However, all of this pales in comparison to what I like to call the Overlander Saga. This is an arc that spans 10 stories and many months of real-world time. And while this section is less focused on the comic's twisted
Садись, ты во что оделся, блядь?
sense of humor, though it's still there, it is the perfect example of the comic's unrelenting, manic tone. We begin with the Wrath of Khan. Here, some of the Overlanders have returned from a space expedition. Since they still believe that these animal fellows are dangerous, they go to Eggman, thinking that he'll keep them safe. You can't really blame them either, since Monkey Khan swoops in and starts being a psycho, and he's attacking people because he's a bit bummed out about the whole Dead Village thing. However, Sonic, being the hero, being a swell guy, he still wants to save them. Some of the dialogue in this issue is a real treat, and I say that without a hint of sarcasm. This comic is getting really funny. Yo, you gotta chill, dude. You're like freaking everybody out big time.
Can a sun cease the inferno that rages in its very heart?
Guess not. Can it at least quit with the corny dialogue? No, Sonic! Let the monkey man cook! I need more. Oh yeah, Sonic has also apparently had enough of Pokemon, but you don't see him complaining. We could all learn a thing or two from him.
Ясно.
Then we cap it off with this full page of Sonic
Во-первых, какой же ты, сука, здесь всратыш. А во-вторых, отсылка на ебучий Стартрек. Охуенно. Кан!
yelling, "Con!" I mean,
Пиздец, блядь. Проводишь? Это не я ору. Это идет это ебучее синее недоразумение из комиксов.
look at it. Look at her. And her. Look at him. Look at this. This is art. Also, Monkey Khan just takes off after the scuffle. Guess the inferno of rage within him subsided somewhat. Actually, that's the last time any of these writers are going to use him. He's just gone. Which, to be honest, is a little disappointing. They could have done a lot more with... Oh, sorry. Almost forgot. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the other through line in this Overlander Saga section is the Sword of Acorn, mainly its ability to reinstate Robian free will. When Sonic learns this, he steals it in an attempt to free the Robians and his Uncle Chuck in Robotropolis. But ultimately, he loses it. From here, Sonic realizes that he's really messed things up. As punishment, he loses knighthood and a lot of his freedoms. In fact, he's about to receive the harshest punishment. He loses knighthood. And a lot of his freedoms. In fact, he's about to receive the harshest punishment he could ever imagine. To face the scariest place of all. Public school.
Нет, я не хочу обучаться, я хочу сидеть на дереве, жрать чили-доги и пиздить всех.
Yeah, that's right. As Eggman tricks these Overlanders into entering Robotropolis and begins performing terrible experiments on them, Sonic is just stuck in public school. But this school section is among the comic's funniest stories.
О, та самая тачка, которая потом еще появится в фильмах.
Sonic's pure hatred of sitting in the classroom, getting to see all these dorky outfits, combined with Tails poking fun at Sonic's love for Princess Sally and the art. Oh, baby, the art.
Больше ступней, потому что, блядь, я не хочу об этом говорить.
Uh-oh, where's my book bag? Gotta find it fast. This doesn't make any sense. I've retraced my footsteps exactly, and there's no sign of Aether.
А, на секунду, потому что это Наклз, ну ладно.
Where did you come from? You see my book bag? Of course, the comic doesn't keep Sonic locked down for too long either. I mean, he's not the sort of guy who would just accept this state of affairs. For one, he still feels responsible for losing the Sword of Acorns and wants to get it back. But also, he's constantly concerned for the Overlanders trapped by Dr. Eggman, even though it seems like no one else really is. It makes Sonic actually feel like a hero who's looking out for others, even those who would deem him and his kind a threat. It's super likable. And so, like any good hero, Sonic dons this ninja outfit of sorts and disguises himself as the Sneak.
Да, наконец-таки я смог пройти новый Ниндзя Гайден на Xbox. Пора вдохновиться.
Yes, Sonic, you are the man now, Hog. Word to Sonic's mother.
Блять, охуенные субтитры. Мужик-свинья, слово матери Соника. Мужик-свинья.
Unfortunately, Jeffrey is also going into Robotropolis with a group of his own, and Sonic has to step in and protect them when things go wrong. What's also not helping is the Overlanders' absolute disgust for those filthy furries. And in the end, all our fuzzy friends and Jeffrey are captured. Oddly enough, though, the breakout is strangely easy. Almost like Eggman wasn't trying. And soon enough, Eggman's diabolical scheme is
Я тебя не могу, блядь. Не знаете, самому надо прочитать некоторые комиксы, потому что рисовка в них просто гениальная. Потому что некоторые из этих моментов — это чистые мемы. Это готовые мемы до мемов.
revealed to the reader. First of all, he's reprogrammed Heavy and Bomb while they were captured with Jeffrey's group. And he allowed them to escape so that they could be activated as sleeper agents to kill the royal family. And second, he's actually been releasing toxins into the air that will eventually kill all of the Overlanders unless they accept his robotic handshake, allowing him to turn his own people into a robot army, with the added benefit that if they refuse, the robotization process will leave them as lifeless statues. That's right, Eggman has upgraded his body with the terrifying power to roboticize anyone with a single touch.
В какой-то степени очень, знаете, похоже на... на вот этот самый металлический вирус.
Overall, Eggman is truly keeping things interesting. Like, these issues genuinely flow together quite nicely, and the Doctor feels like a threat. There's this shockingly intense exchange between Eggman and this little girl named Hope, the original Robotnik's niece. She's one of the few who's had proper suspicions about Eggman and his intentions. As she tries to tell her family that something's wrong, Eggman comes in and roboticizes her dad right in front of her. She runs away, barely escaping into the city. Eggman then appears on massive screens overlooking his domain, mocking her as he roboticizes her grandmother too. Eggman can't even bring himself to hold a hostage. He'd much rather torture this poor little girl instead. After all, he knows he'll capture her eventually too. Regardless of if some of the art is poor, the dialogue is doing a ton of good work here, and honestly, I say the art is poor, but
Ладно, не сказал бы. Здесь с ним ли выглядит просто потрясно. Это... Опять же, сама идея действительно классная. Ну да, порой арт странно выглядит. Но с ним ли? Это что-то, блядь. Это невероятное существо, похожее на смесь Голума, я не знаю, какого-то хитрого Гилберта Готфрида, который сейчас начнет говорить голосом Ягуа. Где мои ебаные орешки? Вот реально, это потрясно.
I kind of like it. In fact, I think I might love it. It's just so ridiculous and has granted every one of these stories this intrinsically comedic tone. Like, what's happening to the Overlanders should be through and through horrifying, and it is in some regards, but it's also just really goofy because we have these sketchy looking anime guys hanging out with Eggman and Snively, and boy oh boy, is this an engaging contrast. Speaking of, I love how much Snively and Eggman are actually a team now, throwing it out about being evil together. They even have some fun odd couple moments. It's really not what I'd expect from Snively either. I mean, Snively used to be a little okay. What happened? It's like everyone in this comic is okay with just killing everyone else now. Okay, maybe that's a little far though. But you know what I mean. It's funny is what I'm saying, but also deeply disturbing. This poor man is begging for his life. He has kids. And just as Eggman can't seem to care, I can't seem to stop laughing.
My native race. Oh, how I've missed you so much. Wait, I recognize that one. It's my brother Colin. Or rather, the previous Robotnik's brother Colin. I'm an alternate reality Eggman who roboticized my own Colin years ago, but that was there and not here, so I'll roboticize him too! I'll turn them all into my mechanical servants!
But then there are the
Потрясающе, блядь, настолько ебанулся.
dramatic moments between our furry friends.
Хотя он всегда был ебанутым, но здесь его ебанутость прям хорошо так проявляется.
These bits of vulnerability that should land, but are just... wow. Here, the gang believes that Sally is dead after she's been driven off a cliff by Kodos. Don't worry if you forgot who he is, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the dialogue alone is fine enough, but then you look at their faces and... However, it's surprisingly not all bad. Like, look at this cool silhouetted shot. This seems appropriately weighty and dramatic. This way, though, the comic never lets me get comfortable. As soon as I think I can simply laugh at everything that's happening or stop taking it seriously, there will be moments like this that make me pause and go, oh, this is actually kind of good, though. But then Sonic says he wasn't fast enough, and Rotor says that they were just too late, and their expressions are so flat and lifeless, and it's right after Ant jabs a guy in the butt with his sword, and... how am I supposed to feel about any of this?
So much.
Реально, контраст порой очень ебанутый. Когда ты смотришь, ты вроде ожидаешь, что это будет, знаете, так забавненько, смешно, потом резко драма, от которой ты просто думаешь, ёб твою мать, куда вы понеслись? У вас же вроде так забавненько, все было смешно. То есть порой такое чувство, будто авторы сами не знают. То ли им историю развивать чисто в таком легком ключе, то ли действительно гнать такую драму. И порой этот контраст, он, сука, выжигает мозги. Такое ощущение, будто, ну реально, одну сцену написал один человек, потом он ушел, там, заболел, я не знаю, там, брюшным жопным тифом, и за его место пришел вообще другой человек, который комедии писал. Или типа того.
For that hallmark moment.
Anyway, regardless of all that, though, Sally isn't actually dead because the recently retrieved Sword of Acorns saves her. After this, the Freedom Fighters swoop into Robotropolis, and Sally uses the sword to give the Robians back
Ебать, и ебло растянуло.
their free will. They escape, but only because Nate Morgan stays behind to lower Eggman's energy shield. And as Eggman reaches out to roboticize Nate, we know our time with this dear, dear friend is coming to an end. Except that I definitely don't care about Nate Morgan, to be honest. And he hasn't done anything that memorable in, well, since that fight with Ixis Nagus, really. And that wasn't a good kind of memorable. And now we're just disposing of him. Maybe I should be upset by that. But of course, I'm not. It doesn't matter. Regardless, though, it's important to remember that even if I didn't like Nate Morgan, Sonic did. And our heroic hog still wants to save him. After all, if the sword worked...
Обожаю субтитры, господи, блядь, Боров. Я понимаю, что Хок, типа, ну, здесь ежик имеется в виду, но Хок, Боров...
on all these other folks, it should work on Nate Morgan too, along with all these other guys that were left behind. But here's the thing, even the sword can't restore their free will. As such, the best Sonic and Sally can do here is escape with the remaining flesh and blood Overlanders, and that's hardly a victory. They've all been poisoned, and leaving likely means death, or at least incredible illness. Yeah, Sonic and Sally fail spectacularly. So where do we go from here? How does Sonic plan to restore Nate Morgan's free will? Well, he doesn't think about it much. For many issues, he just moves on. I guess he's given up.
У них там как раз Sega Dreamcast. Зачем думать об этом вообще? Давайте расслабимся. Там куча файтингов на Сеге вышло.
Maybe he's just trying not to think about his failures. For a while, it's hard to say, but the comic eventually wraps back around to the Save Nate Morgan plot with Station Square attacks. The issue that I believe perfectly defines what makes this section of the comic so unique. An issue that dares to ask, what does a talking blue hedgehog, a two-tailed fox, and 5 nuclear-armed missiles have in common? Well, true blue fans, turn the page to find out. So Station Square's defense system has gone out of control and it's sending nuclear missiles at Robotropolis. And Station Square's got no way to stop this. Obviously, nuclear fallout spells doom for everyone, so Sonic and Tails rush to Eggman. They need him to shoot down these missiles before they strike. But of course, Eggman has another plan. He'll simply raise his energy shield and keep it up until everyone in Knothole is dead and the fallout has passed.
Видите что? Сучки, пока все сучки не умрут.
Raise his energy shield and keep it up until everyone in Knothole is dead and the fallout has passed.
Почему бы и нет? Слушайте, у него есть полное право на это. Мужик и так говна натерпелся, он в новом теле хочет спокойно жить и расслабиться.
So it seems like Sonic is screwed, right? No, wrong. Our way past coolest hog has other plans. He stalls just long enough for Tails to make it look like he sabotaged the shield, forcing Eggman to waste time trying to fix it, and then only being able to raise it once the missiles enter inside the barrier, meaning that the blast is contained within Robotropolis and kills Eggman and Snively. Mondo, ouch. Don't worry though, they come back. But wow, quite the victory for our heroes to even make a flashy getaway by running up one of the missiles. Way to go, guys. Wait, what's that? Oh, you're wondering about Nate Morgan. All the roboticized Overlanders that Sonic wanted to save.
No.
The ones who were trapped inside Robotropolis.
Oh.
They're dead! Strip me naked and
Они реально сдохли? Соник, очень быстро ешь, Соник, им всем насрать, потому что вы не основные персонажи. Сдохните там с работ... А, не, работник жив. Сука.
call me Sally, folks. They're actually dead. Sonic murdered them. His body count, it's... How did the writers forget? The writers forgot? Did they forget? Did they not care? What happened? Why did he kill so many people? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Back in the World Adventure arc, there was one story that invoked a similar, if way more subdued, reaction from me. When Sonic left all those freedom fighters to fend for themselves against a horde of Robians in Sandblast City. Sure, those guys were jerks who wanted to imprison Sonic as their personal protector, but the way in which Sonic casually dismisses the idea of helping them when Tails brings it up is notable. Personally, I just found it funny, but it's clear that a good amount of Archie Sonic fans thought it was kind of problematic for his character being a hero and all. So in issue 70, an entire B story is dedicated to Sonic dreaming about how fans perceive him as this perfect hero. Eventually, he wakes up screaming and confides in Tails that he feels bad about what he did to Sandblast City. Those freedom fighters, they might have done wrong, but they were still freedom fighters, they were still innocent people. And what does this all mean for him morally? Can he really be considered a hero anymore? However, thanks to Tails' words of encouragement, he comes to the conclusion that, well, he's not perfect. He usually tries to do good, and I guess that's what counts. Allowing Sonic to realize that he's okay with being gray. As much as his answer screams, I don't know what to tell you, kids, it at least shows an intention to try.
Честно, хотя бы это действительно неплохой момент, потому что, да, Соник порой не всегда поступает там идеально, но ему и не надо, он не какой-то ебучий там герой-спаситель всего, да, он не может всех спасти. Порой он может совершить ошибки. Это нормально.
And do right by the fans as far as Sonic's morality is concerned, to address things the writers may not have previously considered. But here, what Sonic does to all these people, it's just never brought up again. No one ever acknowledges that Nate Morgan obviously died here, and he does not come back. He's dead. Sonic definitively killed him. And maybe that's kind of for the best. How could you possibly rationalize this? Who knows? Maybe Sonic just forgot. He wasn't thinking about it. It was 4 a.m., dude. Have you ever tried to save the world without your sleep? All I know is that this story is absolutely surreal and absolutely hilarious.
Whoa.
Right, kids, welcome back once again. Today we will be entering the zone together. What do I mean by that? Well, in the beginning, there was Robotnik and Eve, a hyper-advanced artificial intelligence he created. However, it quickly turned on him, zapping him into another dimension, or a zone, as it's called in this comic. There, he met Robo-Robotnik, and as we can see, there's even another Sonic and Sally there. And through the fruit of his loin, Sally has birthed wondrous fruit in the form of these two children. Of course, Robo-Robotnik does eventually kill all of them, but yeah, But this is one Sonic who doesn't die. The protagonist of Archie Sonic, Sonic Prime. And those zones that pop
Теперь у нас есть другой Sonic Prime.
up, he's gonna get dragged on many wild adventures through them. There he'll encounter people who look familiar, but are in fact entirely different people. Like imagine there are other
Sonic Manheos, ниндзя. Охуенные скины эти для какой-нибудь игры использовать. Реально, тут столько вариаций, которые можно потом использовать в других играх.
or me's out there. There could be
комиксов в будущем.
one who's an astronaut, one who is a pilot, and one perhaps even who's a sad, pathetic YouTuber. Anyway, which zones might Sonic Prime be visiting? Well, the Sally Moon Zone, no doubt.
Да, вот Такседа Накс, блядь, сука. Они серьезно сделали женскую версию Эгмана, которая типа королева Белли в какой-то степени. Салли, блядь, и Эми Чибиус. Это прекрасно, господи. Это великолепно. Привет, милая. Чиби Роуз. Чиби Роуз и Салли Мун, это прекрасно, господи.
Litigationopolis. After Sonic Prime is framed in this zone, he has to clear his name. Those more avid students might even recognize this because this is actually where Ken Penders took Archie comics. Oh look, Sonic Prime's about to get a kiss. And you know who I want a kiss from? That bot on the right, students. Anyway, the art here,
Sonic Spin City.
it's really impressive. Kids. Oh, this one. I honestly, this is my favorite. Sonic Live. As you can see, Sonic grabs these two kids, and it's the greatest kidnapping I've ever seen. They get to go on adventures with him in their TVs. Their TVs. Class, I wish Sonic would pull me through a screen like that, don't you? And I wish he would hold me in those arms.
Блять, убери это лицо, Соник. Я не хочу видеть, чтобы ты с этим лицом обнимал этих детей.
Those firm hands. Thankfully, I don't ever have to feel too far from Sonic Live's presence. This is my very own signed copy. Trust me, this issue, it's gotten lots of personal use.
Ладно.
Anyway, now it's time for Sabrina the Teenage Wish.
Серьезно? У Соника был коллапс с Сабриной маленькой ведьмой? Ебать.
As you can see, her and Sonic are having lots of fun in this crossover special. I really can't help but look at this and wish that Sonic would do that sort of playtime with me. We can even see them having post-playtime rest. But, of course, Sally has to ruin the fun by threatening to dox this innocent witch, with all these villains from their world coming to attack if she does that. Seriously, why does she always have to take control of the situation like this? What a teenage... Sorry, almost lost myself there. But at least I can find myself again with Sonic Underground. Yeah, this is another crossover, all right. However, at this point, you might have asked yourself, how are they traveling between these zones? Well, through the cosmic interstate. It's like a road you drive on to cross between zones. And who watches over that road? Sonic the Zone Cop. And he...
Соник. Странно, что у него еще компаньона Сосика, я не знаю, блядь, Соник.
He's from the perpendicular zone, which is why he always stands that way. This is just the sort of savvy world building you can only find here, kids. If there's any trouble, Sonic will throw any miscreants into jail. This is the jail. And Warden Zobotnik's there, and kids, you do not want to have a run with him, so stay out of prison, please. Sometimes, though, zones aren't so clear-cut, and they will break down. There's even a story all about that, where they end up through all this zone, interzone travel.
О, стоп, они, получается... Да, это экранизация того... Точнее, не экранизация, это комикс по Соникове. То есть, вот, опять же, та самая дочка президента, Эгман в своем стиле, работник вот этот, ну, вот этот меха-работник, как он там, метал-работник.
In the world of the Sonic the Hedgehog Japanese anime OVA. Knuckles even has his little hat and everything. Sonic and Sally, they also dream of Knuckles, those lucky ducks. I wish I could dream I was engaged to Rad Red too. But there's another story we need to really pause and focus on. Here you can see that Sonic Prime is being asked by Sonic to go save another zone. Of course, being the hero, he agrees. But he does not know what he's just gotten himself into. Because see, in this zone, his friends have been transformed into these terrifying creatures.
Какие же вы страшные, блядь.
Fortunately, though, this zone's Robotnik is a nice man, and he's going to help Sonic fight them by outfitting him in this insanely impressive mech. As you can see, though, he has to fight them, and it's a hard fight, it's a bad fight, and there's
Такое
even
чувство, будто Lowart, он как будто сейчас сдохнет. У него голос такой прям, как будто он почти помер.
Rad Red in the background he's been transformed to. Worst of all, his own father. Well, this dimension's version, at least, Jules Hedgehog is a mutant as well, but Sonic duty calls and he strikes him down. He strikes him down. And the pain and the anguish he feels there, students, I mean, when I look at this, I can't help but think of something really similar that happened between me and my father, and I had to do it. I didn't have a choice, but that doesn't...
Блять.
God, I miss that man.
Господи, чел.
Sonic's definitely accidental crimes against humanity are far from the only time that the comic just suddenly drops things, intentional or otherwise, or introduces new ideas only to violently murder them, figuratively, and more often than not, literally. Remember how Rotor left to go see his family back in issue 72? Well, actually, maybe you don't. Anyway, this is your reminder. Regardless, in issue 85, we're told in the short B story as part of a condensed flashback about what happened to them, and this guy ends up having to return home to Knothole. Almost like the writers forgot where he was and rushed to get him back home. Or maybe they didn't. After all, they were doing Sonic Adventure in between this, so maybe it just didn't fit there. Whatever. Now they have time to set up a conflict for him to overcome with him rescuing his family. Right? Except we only address this subplot 24 issues later, or in other words, 2 real-world years later. And the way it's done is by having him tell his
Серьезно, 2 года?
friends about it for the first time. Then they just go and do it, with his only contribution to saving his family being that he actually told someone that they needed help. Over 6 weeks have passed in-universe since this guy returned, and 8 issues since they got the Sword of Acorns back, and he never brought it up? Maybe my man had too much homework. You know, exams are stressful, and maybe more important than getting your family back. Sonic Adventure 2 is coming out, so suddenly, smack dab in the middle of the Overlander Saga, we gotta do an SA2 adaptation. However, this is just an introduction to SA2, not a full-on story, and we're simply told to go play the game. One problem with that. The game doesn't slot neatly in with the comic. Knuckles and Tails literally couldn't be involved in SA2 storyline because they're off doing other stuff, but that's a tale for another time. Amy's involvement also doesn't really work as far as the comic is concerned because she hasn't become the matured character her SA2 counterpart requires her to be. And while the comic does address that this is the case, it makes the audience then question, what from SA2 is canon to the Archie comics? Since characters from Archie are in the prologue chapter,
Вау, ладно, не знаю, вот эта рисовка выглядит действительно круто. Хотя это вообще не подходит Сонику. Это больше для какого-то крутого, я не знаю, такого меха-проекта.
this means that Sonic does meet Shadow and experience some version of SA2. Shadow is going to appear later on, so what does this mean? The Sword of Acorns is definitely a thing, and has been our go-to MacGuffin for a while now. Passed around most recently by Uma and Kodos, who kept it out of the hands of heroes and villains alike before it had a chance to resolve the Robian conflict. If you can't remember them, that's fine. Combined, they have about as much characterization as the magic sword itself. Kodos is power-hungry, and Uma is certainly existing. One now speaks in incoherent, literally brain-rotted screams, and the other has spoken once. Eventually, the two die, and the sword is given to Uma's children, who apparently have memory DNA? What the heck is memory DNA? That tells them to get the sword to do something. Well, okay, I thought Uma was on Kodos' side, but then she obviously took the sword from him, so I figured that maybe she wanted it for herself, since Kodos implied he would kill her. But what did she do with the sword that her children could now fulfill? Wait. So the sword was stolen when Kodos went to sleep, then 6.5 weeks passed, and now he's looking for the sword? I don't know what's going on. This is Tommy Turtle, the fella.
Честно, с таким... Вот с такой историей, такими постоянными переключающимися моментами, когда то мы к одной истории бегут, другой. Понимаете, за этим пиздец тяжело порой следить. У тебя начинается уже какой-то, я не знаю... Чернодырие начинается, начинаешь уже все забывать.
Who taught Sonic the Hedgehog the meaning of friendship. You ever heard of the tortoise and the hare? There you go. No need for a recap. That's the story. And oh my gosh, is that Sleuth Doggy Dog? Oh, baby, it's been a while. Oh, is that Drago? Is that a grenade? Let's juice and jam, Turtle Boy. Blue streaks, speeds by Sonic the Hedgehog. So this new Robotnik is flesh and blood, so now he can't roboticize others with his touch? Wait, he lost the...
It's taken weeks to build these new and improved bodies, while we bounced around various inferior bodies, and finally without the virus that kept me from downloading Naruto's location.
Wait, he knows the location to what? Bam! Aliens!
Very well, let the experiments begin.
Wait a minute, wait. Go back. No diggity is right, Sonic. What do you mean Eggman knows where Knothole is? And he's not doing anything about it? And the reveal is given zero...
Блять, серьезно. Он знает расположение этого места. В итоге, блядь, он потерял какую-то способность. В итоге... Вот серьезно, блин, у меня ощущение такое, будто авторы просто занимались ебучим жонглированием шариков со сценариями, и что на бошку упадет, либо на пол. То, блядь, и берем. Вот серьезно, это... Я не знаю, может у меня какие-то проблемы, но это настолько порой ощущается неструктуризированно. Пиздец какой-то.
Zero fanfare. It's just a thing that happens. The comic has completely dropped all pretense of having a goal for our characters. Mobotropolis, their home, is gone. A literal toxic wasteland that our heroes can never return to. So what's the goal? Defeating Eggman once and for all? Good luck with that. This man holds power over 99% of the planet. There's no saving the day like in the games. There's no peace to preserve. Our heroes are screwed, and their goal is to not die. We're now at a point where even if they were actually allowed to defeat Eggman, it would just be redundant. Wouldn't matter. We're too far gone. And as for the new life, our heroes get to live. Their home is now an easy target. Random attacks are just a part of their life now. Eggman already has a new base of operations, a new army, a new giant robot. Remember that these things were supposed to be important? That it was supposed to mean something? Throughout this section of the comic, I never knew what to expect. I couldn't get into some boring rhythm where I could easily predict what would happen next. I mean, have you seen this? It's glorious. It also just helped a lot that moment to moment. This is way better than something like Endgame or that Nagas fight in the World Adventure. Like, this dialogue is reasonably snappy, there's a good dose of humor, intentional or otherwise, and the characters have got personality, even if they just forget things sometimes. It helps that the art isn't usually bad in a chaotic way either. What I mean is that the paneling is organized enough, and it's pretty easy to tell what's going on. In fact...
Но то, что вы сделали с Фроги, я не прощу, твари. Фроги не должен страдать в ваших кривых руках.
Sometimes it leans into the characters' mindsets and struggles, helping me empathize with them. Like this scene where Monkey Khan is trudging through the desert towards a confrontation with the big doctor. The way he goes from left to right on the page, but the sun remains the same in the sky. We move from day to night and night to day. And it tells how long he's been trekking toward this and the anger that propels him. Which means that the act of reading the comic is pretty pleasant. No more confusion as to what's happening. Most of the time. Instead, it's only bad in the sense that it's hard to take seriously. But if I'm already not taking it seriously and don't care about that, well, then who cares? It's not even bad at that point. It's ridiculous. It's hilarious. It's fun. As far as I'm concerned, that makes it pretty good. But even the art isn't consistent. No, sometimes it looks like this, but other times it looks like this. Like, this looks great. James Fry
Сказал бы. С одной стороны, прикольно, но мне не нравится такой перебор с угловатостью.
Introduces the sick, angular style to the cast with these far-out, exaggerated poses and expressions. Everyone looks like a cool sticker I'd want to put on my Game Boy Advance, my Game Gear. If I was reading this...
Но почему? На Game Boy тоже? Особенно учитывая, что Sega как бы потом перешла к своим старым врагам и спокойно выпускала игры на эти портативочки, но не только на портативочки Nintendo.
At the time of release. I love it. Art Mooney is back from the gag era too, and it's pretty fun seeing him continue to recreate the SatAM style next to these updated game designs. And finally, newcomer Jay Axer's detailed work is stunning. There's so much going on here. It feels like I could step into these spaces, like this is an actual fully realized forest, castle, balcony, or mansion. It reminds me of Spaz's style, but a lot more rounded. And speaking of Spaz, he's mostly sticking to drawing great covers for the issue.
Причем еще и со ссылочками на «Звездные войны» даже. Блядь, это тупо... Просто очень странный постер для второго эпизода.
issues, a quality the inside material rarely matches up to, or maybe it's the other way around. Except for this one, I guess. See, Spaz actually was given one issue to do the interior art for, and it's that SA2 adaptation I mentioned, which sure is mostly just a straightforward retelling of events that don't come through to mean anything, but look at it. All this detail, the gorgeous lighting. I don't even know what else to say. It's pretty surprising when you're going through a bunch of other stuff like this, for instance. Who drew this? Well, many hands.
Что, блять, с рисунком? Челика как будто, знаете, быстренько нарисовали в Paint или типа того, такой, знаете, очень простеньком редакторе.
Apparently, yeah, I guess no one wanted complete credit for this. Hard to say why. To me, it looks like there wasn't a proper issue prepared for the monthly release date, so everyone had to slap together some sketches. This one doesn't even have a unique story. It's just an incredibly bad adaptation of a Sonic Sad AM episode. This mysterious entity would also be responsible for the art in another Naugus issue. This story that actually contains nearly 4 pages of pitch black nothingness, followed by 6 pages of a snowstorm blocking
Потрясающий комикс, блядь. А сколько все было плохо,
an action scene underneath. Oh, wow. What's that? The coloring, the detailed art, the robotic designs. Why is this so good? Plus, the story is pretty fun too, with these aliens kidnapping Sonic, Tails, Eggman, and Sniffly. They want to see whether organic or robotic beings are better, so they turn Sonic and Tails into robots, while Eggman and Sniffly are made flesh and blood. Whoever wins will be returned to their former forms, while the others will be trapped in their new bodies. So now a big, bombastic, beautifully illustrated story by Stephen Butler carries everything from there. Is this plot incredibly random? Sure. Does it haphazardly reset the status quo a bit with Eggman losing his robotic abilities? Yep. Do I care at this point? Meh. Really though, it's just a cool, fun little one-off, and I'm happy I read it. Of course, it's smack dab in the middle of some other mediocre tales, like this Bunny and Rouge fight, but hey, this is...
Ну зато для артов, любителей лесби-артов, вот реально для лесби-артов отлично подойдет. У вас прям хороший контент есть.
At least they see the Statue of Liberty for some reason.
Без руки еще.
That's almost as random as the 2-issue Guardians of the Galaxy parody that I'm clearly not the audience for.
Блять, серьезно.
But that's part of my point here. Throughout this section of the comic, I never knew what to expect. Above all else, it kept me on my toes, and it's hard to get bored with. Have I mentioned how much I like this comic's version of Tails? He's been a consistently well-written little guy who's the kid the group wants to protect, but he's also competent, tries his best, and a great sidekick to my man Sonic. And honestly, this section of the comic has some of my favorite material for him thus far. More so than ever before, Tails has become this little brother of sorts for Sonic, where he lives with him and his family, bonding with them, even taking family photos. He's excited to spend time with Sonic, and Sonic's excited to spend time with him. At one point, they're even putting off planning for a mission together by just gaming it up. They sit down and talk about the ladies together. Honestly, it's one of the most wholesome, lovable dynamics in the whole comic. We also consistently see how caring a kid he is, even in some of the goofier moments presented here, like his concern for Dulcie during that abuse saga. Meanwhile, the whole group absolutely loves him, and his very existence encourages them to take a step back and slow down. I mean, he's the reason why they play hide and seek, and in some ways, the reason they never lose sight of themselves and their friendship in this cruel world. But he's not just there for those ever-important small moments. He's there for the big stuff too, like when Mobotropolis is destroyed. It's just him and Sonic together there, with Sonic encouraging him, telling him that things will be alright, and Tails taking him at his word because they're brothers and they trust each other that much. Among all this insanity, we have this right here. And it's kind of beautiful.
Что-то в этом есть.
But
Но, скажу так, мне все еще как-то роднее то, что было показано в играх, мимолеты, но все же. Хотя, блин, может, нереально стоит действительно как-то ознакомиться с некоторыми выпусками, которых это действительно показано лучше.
have a confession to make.
Но.
This isn't Tails. None of this was Tails.
Чё?
How could it be?
Чё?
Do you remember the book bag incident?
Чё?
In issue 94, Tails was taken by this echidna named Aether because there was an important quest that only he, the Chosen One, could handle. For now, the details of this story aren't important, a tale for another time and all that jazz, except for one thing. Tails failed to carry out his mission. Why? Well, because this wasn't the real Tails. This was some sort of copy. So not knowing what to do at this point, Tails' his Uncle Merlin the Wizard and the Guardian Aether decided to deposit the fake Tails back with his friends and pretend like nothing had happened.
Чё за хуйня?
And so he remained there through thick and thin, spending time with his friends and family, and time with the readers of this comic too. A lot of time. 1 year and 8 months of real-world time, to be precise. It was long enough that many readers likely forgot this even was the fake tales. I wouldn't have been surprised if the comic forgot too, considering its failure to follow up on plot points in the past. But this time, it didn't forget. No, it remembered in terrifying detail. Tales is a fake, and Judgment Day is coming. In issue 114, it's revealed that Fake Tales has been having a strange nightmare over and over again. He sees this dark cave and something is pulling him toward it. Eventually he leaves in the middle of the night and somehow he just knows where to go. Sonic follows him and they go inside together. Two brothers prepared to face their fates. It's here that the villainous Mammoth Mogul, a tale for another time, reveals himself and explains what's happened. He kidnapped the real Tails so that he could siphon away his powers. He planted the fake Tails in his place so that no one would notice until it was too late. Fake Tails learns that he's a false facsimile, a phone.
Жесть, просто осознавать то, что ты фальшивкой все это время был. Ух ты ж. Вот это у вас не схватило,
And there's only one way for him to give the real Tails the power he needs. He must sacrifice himself. He must die. Because there just can't be two Tails.
Oh, fuck.
Good times and bad times, I can count on being with you. I thank you for staying so true. My life will go on a long time, have to catch up when I see you. And you are my reason I can make it through. I will give my word that I will come in time to rescue. My heart will always be with you. I'm so glad I met you, being with me wherever. We're made for each other forever. Just like a river that flows, just like stars in the dark night. Lead me in the storm, lead me in the dark. You are the light of my life. I will be there if you need me, and I know you'll do the same. I can see you, I can hear you in my heart. You will be here if I need you. I will never have to guess, 'cause we are very special friends.
Бать, Ода. Ну, опять же, исполнено потрясно.
Send me a letter, let me know how you're doing. You are my lifetime and true friend, will never be forgotten.
Nah, I'm just messing with you. We never bring this up again.
Зараза.
All right, everyone. Today, things are going to be a little different. Professor Lowart is out. He's taking a mental wellness day, and he asked me to cover for him. I am Professor Bill. I teach Acorn Studies here at the university, which means I am more than familiar with the material you are supposed to be covering today, the Tales of the Great War. A wonderful battle between the Overlanders and the Acorn Kingdom, which, speaking of...
Я не могу, они очень, реально, вообще не сочетаются в своем стиле, а что животные, вот эти люди.
Let's go back to one of the first generations in Mobian society, where we find Alexander Acorn gathering the disparate peoples of his era to create the first multicultural society on planet Mobius. However, as we all know, not all people are created equal, and the Overlanders in their awesome might just refuse to engage with the well-meaning but simplistic ideals of Alexander. Still, the Mobians and Overlanders were able to live in peace for a time, rarely interacting. Thankfully, however, that was about to change, as Alexander's grandson Emerson would encounter the Overlander named Paladin. Things started rather friendly. The two are hitting it off. But not for long, as while Paladin was showing off his pistol to his new friend, hoping to impress him with his sharpshooting skills, Emerson jumped in the way to protect an innocent bird and paid the ultimate price. King Theodore,
Мать твою.
ever loyal to his father's ideals, did not seek vengeance that day on the boy or other Overlanders, wanting only to bury his fallen son. Obviously, something had to change. Many generations later, two spies met and attempted to broker a plan for peace. Thankfully, though, the two traitors were captured in the act and brought to justice by Warlord Kodos. As we get a crack, back-to-back, boys and girls, their worthless carcasses hauled off to their leaders as a declaration of war. A great war had just begun. However, even the best of us make mistakes. So basically what happened
Можно было и без этого.
is that after Julian Kintobor was saved by the Mobians, Kodos feared this Overlander would betray him and his people. So, he brought the man down to Ixisnagus' lair and showed him the Zone of Silence. He then seemingly hands Julian a weapon, turns his back and talks for a bit, and yeah, that happens, allowing Julian to become the new warlord for King Max. You might be asking, what was the plan here? No clue. Either way, the war waged on, with chaos and carnage around every turn. No one was holding back. I mean, just look at that monkey! However, I want to bring attention to one brave soldier named Jules Hedgehog, who after being brutally shot in the head, his broken body procured only by his just as cool wife Bernadette Hedgehog. Well, this encounter, as we'll soon see, is about to shape the future of Planet Mobius. As Charles Hedgehog, desperate to save his brother's life who, at this point, was beyond help by normal medical means, offers an alternative solution. A new medical technology that he had been creating. A technology that one great man was about to perfect. I don't know what else can be said about Julian Kintobor, better known as Dr. Robotnik, other than that he is a visionary. War becomes benign when only two players are plugged into its console of doom, and Dr. Robotnik is the game genie. During his time as the advisor to Maximilian Acorn, he set up a duel with the Overlander's leader, the outcome of which would decide the fates of both kingdoms. Robotnik knew his people wouldn't play fair, and hoped Max would die in the battle so that he could seize the throne. Unfortunately, fate would not smile on Robotnik that day. Max won the battle, and despite the Overlanders' tricks and treachery, he spared their king and declared the Great War over. Robotnik's other plans fell through.
Ебать. Но главное, что хотя бы пришли к какому-то мирному решению. Хоть, какому-то. Ой, блядь, кстати, надо будет почитать побольше по родителям Соника. Вот таких не как... дядя Чак, про него я уже разузнал побольше, вот про семью именно Сонича. Надо будет действительно почитать поподробнее.